Hey everyone, this is Stuart Crawford and welcome back. Today I'm joined with Blake Schwank and Jeremy Kushner. Blake is with Colorado Computer Support, located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Jeremy is located in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and runs BACS consulting group there in the Bay Area. So before we jump into today's trending news, Blake, let's start with you. Give me like a 5 to 10 second intro for Colorado Computer Support. You got 10 seconds.
10 seconds. All right, Stuart. So I'm Blake Schwank, the president and CEO of Colorado Computer Support. We are an IT managed service provider in Colorado Springs, Colorado, with clients all over the country. And, we provide IT services, fill in as our client's IT department as they're trying to scale, or we work alongside their IT department to help them grow and manage their IT.
Did I say 10 seconds?
It was 10 and a half seconds.
It was close enough. Jeremy, what about give us a little intro about BACS?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Kushner. I'm CEO of BACS Consulting Group. We're located in the San Francisco Bay Area, and like Blake, we provide managed services as well as augmented services for companies that are not big enough to have their own IT support. We also do digital transformation, so consulting to turn your IT department into a profit center.
And another conversation for another day. What the heck is digital transformation? Because I'm sure people want to know what that is.
Yeah, no, I would love to get on your radar about that.
So I love the idea of turning it into a profit center. So many people see it as an expense. So
yeah.
All right, we're here for something else, though.
While Jeremy's enjoying his eggnog there, let's get into our conversation.
Sure.
Let's get into our conversation at hand today. Rackspace. So, Blake, you alerted me over the weekend about this outage that they had. I guess it wasn't a little outage because today is Thursday while we're recording this and there's still issues. Bring everybody up to speed. What happened there?
Yeah, so almost a week ago, so at 2:50 Eastern time, 2:50 a.m. Eastern time last Friday is when, or actually 2:49, is when Rackspace announced that they're investigating an issue with their hosted exchange. So this is Rackspace Hosted Exchange. It's not 365. It's not their bulk web hosting email, but specifically their exchange when it went down at 2:49 Friday morning. I became aware of it. Watching traffic out on the internet, people started commenting on it that they had an outage. And it looked, rolling into Saturday, like it might just be a routine outage. Something's down. Well, as of Sunday, they were still down, started to look at it, and they mentioned that it was a security incident. Then it really started to look like something bad. And them not being able to stand up their email environment in 2 days, I thought was shocking. So, because most of the time we have backups and stuff so that we can turn stuff on, and everybody always assumes companies like Rackspace, which is, how long has Rackspace been around? I mean, it's like
years.
Years, right?
Yeah, we've been using them since at least probably 2005. I'd have to go back and look, but for probably nearly 20 years.
They were doing cloud before Microsoft and Amazon were doing cloud. Amazon was still in the book business when Rackspace was selling hosting and stuff. I would have always assumed that Rackspace had good backups anytime they put something in place that they were selling, just like I assume that Microsoft does and Amazon Web Services. Each one of those sells additional backups on top of that. So you can back up your Azure environment, you can back up your Amazon environment. There was also a backup option for Rackspace, but people assumed that Rackspace was backing their stuff up and they could stand it back up. So that was Sunday when I did my first video on this. We are now at 1 week in. So tonight, in another 10 hours or so, 12 hours, will have been a full 7 days that Rackspace Exchange has been down. Their comments and their status updates point to the data is gone. It doesn't sound like, so they've admitted that they had ransomware. Their comments are, we will be able to start working on in the future restoring clients' data if available. And so they're not acknowledging that they have backups of all this stuff. And so if you were not paying them for backups, they probably have in their terms and conditions that they are not responsible for backing up your data. That's why they sell an add-on backup product. It sounds like anybody that had their data on Rackspace Hosted Exchange that was not backing it up themselves has lost that data. That's the assumption I would go through with it at this point. But what their option is right now, what they've been telling people to do is from day one or day two is migrate to 365. Now, they want people to migrate to Rackspace 365. And I've been telling people to move to Microsoft 365, just go straight directly to Microsoft. But they're migrating without their data. There is no data there to get. So basically what we've done is helped people go to Microsoft and migrate their domain to a completely empty Microsoft 365 mailbox. And that's what it looks like. These guys are going to have to start over if they didn't have the backup option turned on.
So we have something, we got a table for more conversation. SaaS providers being too big to fail, who owns the backup, who's responsible for backup. But before we get into that, Jeremy, just give us your interpretation of the sequence of events, because you do have clients that have been or know of companies that have been impacted by this outage.
Yeah, so we were a big Rackspace user for many years, but over the last, I'd say 6 to 8 years, we've slowly migrated the bulk of our customers over to Microsoft. It's a no-brainer because the Rackspace infrastructure has been aging, and Microsoft even announced that they would no longer support that at some point in the indefinite future, so the hosted exchange. So Office 365 is where things are at and will be for the foreseeable future. However, we still had 4 customers on the hosted exchange. 2 of the customers had declined migrating, most likely for budgetary reasons. And in fact, one of them we were going to migrate next month. He wanted to wait till 2023 for budgetary reasons. We had to accelerate that, obviously. Other one just didn't want to migrate. We had 2 smaller ones that we had not migrated just because they were so small. It didn't really make sense until now. So, but yeah, everything that Blake laid out is true. They've been very vague on where things are going in terms of what this is going to look like once the dust is settled, whether there'll be any data to recover or if everything will be irretrievably lost. They do have an archiving function that some customers had turned on. So with the archiving, you might be able to get some of your email back, but it's not looking good. The fact that they've been so vague and unwilling to offer any sort of timelines or really any sort of information whatsoever as to what the future brings is quite disturbing, and for our customers that are still on the platform, terrifying, because they could literally lose years of accumulated emails.
For the layperson that doesn't understand what hosted exchange is, can one of you two fine tech experts just give us the quick definition of what hosted exchange actually is for the business owner out there who may not know or be aware that what that terminology actually means?
So sure. In the early days of Exchange, you had a physical server at your location that would receive and send out the emails on your behalf. So this is a physical box sitting in a closet somewhere or in your data center or whatever it was, but in your facility. As Blake said, I believe that Rackspace, they might not have been the very first, but close to it in terms of being able to offer this in a hosted environment, meaning that you no longer had the server at your premises. That server was hosted up in the cloud by Rackspace.
I remember, this will date me, Jeremy. I had a company in Halifax, Nova Scotia in the early 2000s where we did hosted exchange on Exchange 5.5.
Wow.
So
that is.
And then Hurricane Juan came through and wiped us out, and yeah, we were out of business. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, I think, and back in the day, I mean, a lot of MSPs just had their own Exchange server that they rented out to clients and stuff, right? With multiple tenants on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody's been moving off of Exchange for the last couple years. So there's been a big push to do that. So
I always thought MSPs hosting email or hosting anything like that was always business suicide myself. I don't know if I didn't ever want to have that responsibility of having client data on my premise.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility for certain. You really need to make sure that all your ducks in a row, and this kind of dovetails not so nicely into this Rackspace tragedy, which it appears that they did not have their ducks in a row and they had not been patching their servers. I'm not sure if they'll ever fully reveal what the weak link was here, but we know that the environment was not secure.
I haven't checked financial standing of Rackspace, but are they a publicly traded or privately held company?
They're
Because they're
publicly traded.
so they would have to disclose that, wouldn't they? By the whatever the regulations are on publicly traded organizations. I think yesterday, Blake, you told me their stock was tanking. It would be a good buy Rackspace would be a good buy right now.
So if we look back at the 5 days, so they're at $4.98 on December 2nd. On Friday at 10:30 in the morning, then the outage happened, and it's been going down ever since. And now they're sitting at $3.17. So they've lost whatever that is, almost $2 worth of valuation from 5 to 3.
Add to that, so I did a little bit of legwork on this myself a few days ago, just kind of curious about the financial stability. So Rackspace they were previously a public company. They were taken private a few years ago, and then they had another IPO, I believe, in the last 2 years, more or less. So at some point they were trading at about $30 a share. So, and I think that was roughly about 12 months ago. So they've had a gradual but steady decline over the last 12 months. So they already appeared to be on the down and down. So I saw a lot of negative feedback in the forums about how their support, not from this incident per se, but just support in general, had declined over the trailing 12 to 18 months.
Let's kind of look at that and then kind of expand into the lessons learned. So too big to fail comes to mind. So Rackspace, Jeremy said up $30 a share at one time. Now they're trading at 3 something. Big company. Big companies fail as well. Let's look, if you look at history and all that. Should businesses be concerned about the Microsofts of the world as well? Could this happen to the Microsofts at one time? Everybody thought IBM was too big to fail, and look at where are they at? They're still around, but where are they at now compared to their glory years? What can businesses do today, Blake, to properly make sure that their data and their information is protected from these companies that could just fold up shop tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it is a really big deal because remember that we also had before iPhones we had Blackberries, right? And now we got but one event, a couple events that could take out any of these providers. But the global failure of whether it's Rackspace or BlackBerry or whatever, that does not affect a company as much as just the day-to-day protection of your data. So if Amazon Web Services went away, we could migrate stuff. If Rackspace went away, if it cratered and shut down, we could migrate stuff if we have backups. And that's why, this really illustrates the point. One of the challenges we've had of trying to get people to do email backups is, well, the clouds, they're doing backups somewhere on the cloud. And that's what everybody has always thought. And I've always thought that these vendors would do a pretty good job backing up because they want to continue selling stuff. Well, this is clear that it's not. And so anytime we take something off, when we had this stuff on premise, when we had our Exchange server on premise, when we had our file server on premise, we made sure that we backed that stuff up. If we have anything that's out on the cloud, we have to find a way to back it up, preferably automated, so that because the human issue is, you tell somebody, I tell Stuart, hey, make sure every day you export your email to a separate box. He'll do it for a couple weeks and then he'll forget. Then he'll forget the following week, and all of a sudden he loses that habit, right? Because as much as you can build a habit, you can lose a habit too. So we want it automated, and if it can't be automated, then somebody needs to have it as their task every Monday morning or whatever to export it. And I guess I'm thinking about things that like QuickBooks Online. Is there a way to back that up? I don't even know. I don't have clients using QuickBooks Online. But things like that, or your Microsoft Dynamics, something like that, do those have automatic backup solutions?
So good points there, Blake. About where is the responsibility for the data lie? Does it lie with you, the MSP business owner? Does it lie with the client themselves? Because technically, if the client's buying something through you as a reseller, to me, if I was contracting you to be the reseller, you're responsible for that, right? Do you shift the responsibility back over to the end customer? I think the end business themselves are ultimately responsible for at least making sure that their data is protected, either with Office 365 or Basecamp or any of these SaaS products that are out there. Jeremy, I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
So we have this question all the time, which is, what do you want to require a customer to do versus what is suggested versus what is simply optional? And it's a question of what is the customer's threshold for risk, because if someone in this case had opted out on email backup, we can offer backups on Office 365. We have a product that does that, and it backs up Azure as well, does it very well. But what if a customer says, well, I don't want to pay for that? And then you have a situation like this where it blows up. So it's kind of a balancing act to figure out what do we absolutely need to require a customer to subscribe to versus what is optional. But what we see when something like this happens and blows up is it puts an incredible strain on our resources. We were only dealing with 4 customers, and the amount of additional work that this has created for our team this week is astronomical. So, and this is just one example of something that can go sideways. You have the whole platform of security issues that can happen and various solutions. And if you make things optional, then you're going to greatly increase the risk to the customer as well as to you as the MSP.
I would say as the IT service provider, you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that your client's data is protected. Even if they opt out. I mean, if I was running an MSP today, I would have some way to back it up, even if I was just backing it up myself. Like I back up client data all the time on Basecamp and keep it on another server somewhere else, just in case, right? Backup is, as more and more applications are going into SaaS models, backup gets more important. I would be shocked if none of these SaaS products are considering that as a default service.
Yeah, it definitely gets more important. But I'm not sure where that. I mean, if we're reselling 365, so we resell 365, and I resell you 100 seats of it and offer to sell you the backups for it, and you decline, and Microsoft goes down, at least we've offered it to you. Now, am I going to make it optional in the future? Probably not. I'm going to use this as a clear example of too big to fail doesn't mean you're not going to fail, right? Because this should have been solid. We've been backing up and restoring Exchange servers for 20 years, right? So it's not that hard to put things back in place.
I'm sure, Jeremy, in California, you have to have car insurance in order to drive your car on the freeway, or anywhere in California. It's mandatory. This should be, I would say, something similar to that. It should be a mandatory service that MSPs provide their client. We're not going to do business with you if you're not going to take the necessary steps to protect your organization.
I agree with you, Stuart, wholeheartedly. The problem is this is just one aspect in a long punch list of things that need to be required. So you get down to what should be required and what shouldn't, because there's so many different elements here. We try to suggest everything that's right to the customer, and if a customer declines, then we give the standard disclosure, which is, okay, you're declining this, we put this in writing, and if you have an issue where there's a blow up and things don't work, then this is the clock's going to be ticking. This will not be included in your plan because you declined what made sense. So we lay out to them the risk in terms of to their business continuity, what that's going to mean when they have things offline, and also what the financial risk will be if we have to fix something because it's a fire drill and they've declined our best recommendations.
I think the other thing is the cost of putting everything back in business. So there's the 15 years of lost email from their Exchange server, and that's one of the things that is really killing small businesses, right? Because they don't have documentation everywhere else. I like having my email, but if I lost it, would it be the end of the world? Probably not, because I have a CRM that has my critical customer data and other documentation elsewhere. But the cost to put all this back together for these clients is huge. So they got to also make sure, besides backups, they've got some cyber insurance, they've got E&O insurance. They got to make sure that they have a IT partner that when things fail has the bandwidth like Jeremy does to put things back together. Yeah, it was a bad weekend for them, but they were able to jump in and work. Can't imagine if it was just Joe Techie, the IT guy, in his solo practice that had 5 clients fail, with Rackspace.
It's like the old Humpty Dumpty story, Humpty Dumpty with Rackspace fell off the wall this weekend. Now it's up to you guys to put the pieces back together. And that and I agree with Jeremy. I was just kind of thinking as he was commenting there, is that I could decline the extended coverage on my car, and if my engine fails, then the responsibility is on me to pay to get the engine fixed, where it may have been covered under an extended warranty program. It's something similar like that, where some people like me understand the value of extended warranties and all that stuff when it comes to other things than technology, and then some people don't, and those are usually the ones that get burned in like a situation like this, where they're a cloud provider, and what recourse do they have? Really, what can a business do to Rackspace? Could they sue? I don't know. What's the legal potential here, Blake?
Well, you can sue. Maybe someone will do a class action suit. Maybe not, right? But the real issue is, so mature businesses are going to survive losing their email because they're going to have stuff in different places. They're going to be able to restore their PST file from their Outlook on their computer, something like that. But from what I think, the people that are going to get crushed and don't have time to wait for a lawsuit is that 5 or 10 person company, right? That's in that stage where most businesses don't last, right? Most small businesses fail. Unfortunately, we want to help them thrive and grow. But at 5 to 10 employees, if you lost 15 years of email, and that's where all your documentation was done, which is the case with so many of these businesses, then you can't find your customers, you can't get orders. And the sad part is a number of these businesses are going to go out of business before they can sue Rackspace, if they ever get a dime out of them. But, if there's a class action suit, and the company is down at $3 a stock, how much money is going to go around?
Yeah,
everybody's going to get $500.
Pennies. It's going to be pennies that people are going to recover. It's not going to make them whole. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things we look at, and a lot of small businesses don't realize this. They say, "Well, thank goodness I don't have to fall under the umbrella of HIPAA, for example, or financial services compliance, or GDPR, as they have in Europe." But there's a reason a lot of those regulations exist, and it's to minimize this type of disruption for those specific services. And those regulations, when you look at how those could apply just to the general market, to small businesses, make a lot of sense. So just because you don't fall under the umbrella of specific compliances doesn't mean you should ignore those. Those are there for a reason.
I think a situation like this will have more industry organizations or professional organizations take stock in what their members. If you want to be a member of good standing in take the Colorado Manufacturing Association, these are the things that you need to have to be a member in good standing. I think it'll come to a point where associations like that, Blake, will step up and implement that kind of regulation.
Yeah, no, and I think the pricing structure will also kind of come into play here, whereas if you choose, going back to car insurance, if you choose the absolute minimum bare bone insurance and you get in an accident and someone gets injured, they're probably not going to be able to cover all those injuries. Maybe it's only going to be $100,000 of coverage. They're probably not going to be able to cover all of the damages. Let's just say it's multiple car, and there's going to be lawsuits. So kind of going with the low-cost IT provider, well, these guys are cheap. Well, yeah, but look at all these boxes that they didn't check, and that's going to cost you. So we're going to start to see some filtering out where, yeah, you're going to go with the low-cost guy, and when things go sideways, you're going to really suffer, opposed to the higher-tiered offerings that include all of these safeguards, where hopefully they can get you back up and running immediately.
Well, I think there's always going to be the frontier and spirit of the IT industry out there that, you're going to pay for every little thing. You're not going to get the same service. Then you're going to be like Blake and fly nothing but United first class everywhere he goes.
There is,
Well, good for you, Blake.
I'm 6'2", to fly 6 hours back by the toilet, it gets painful. So I lost my train of thought, but it's any industry. It's not unique to us, right? So you talk about your car maintenance, you talk about insurance, you talk about whatever, every once in a while, the voice of the consumer, pops up on the news, and it's usually somebody building a bathroom or a deck or a roof or whatever, and they went with the no-name guy, has no history on the Better Business Bureau or something like that, and the guy takes a deposit and doesn't show up to do the work or does the work poorly. So that's happened, forever since people were buying things. IT is no different. So, but I think if you want to, this really makes it clear, though, that if you want to have a real business, you need to be thoughtful in how you get IT services. Make sure you have the right insurance, because companies could have insurance that protected them from losing 15 years of data. Yeah, you'll still lose the 15 years of data, but if you had your cybersecurity insurance, you would then pays for downtime, pays for outages, pays for that kind of recovery, and would keep your business from tanking.
Yeah, very good feedback here on this. Obviously we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that after 30 minutes into our conversation, we're keeping people entertained and informed. So let's kind of wrap up, Jeremy. BACS has been in business for a number of years. You guys have a lot of good experience. What immediate lessons have you learned that you're sharing with your clients, post Rackspace meltdown?
So when we go to talk to clients about risks and investments, we tend to not to like to use scare tactics, because that's just not the type of people we are. However, when you can share a real life story like this as an example, unfortunately, this is a scary story and it's real, and we have to share this so that they understand really what the risks are. So what's the obvious thing to do in this particular scenario? Make sure your email is being backed up so you can move it over to another platform and get back online quickly. And we know that we have the tools to be able to do that, and every single customer should be doing that. So again, it's being able to share these real life examples so that the situation kind of can be hammered home. A lot of customers that have never gone through the pain of some sort of security breach or extended downtime, they don't understand. They just say, it's never happened to me. Not something I'm worried about. But we know in the security world, unfortunately, everyone is going to get hit eventually. So you need to be able to minimize that.
Very true, very true. And Blake, what about you guys? What are you guys telling people, after the events of last Friday, and continuing on Thursday, December 8th, right now? It's still happening.
A week later, yeah. I think review what is critical data to you. If the stuff you log into every day, if it was not available to you, what would the next 2 or 3 days look like, right? And so, and approach it from that standpoint, because we all do a ton of different things. If some of it goes away, we may not notice, right? So, but the critical stuff, what people are screaming about, is the stuff that you need to back up. The other part is make sure that you know how to access this, what controls your critical data. So if it's email, that you actually have a administrative login, or how to get to it, that people are having problems because they don't know how to get to the registrar, don't know what their domain name is, or where it's hosted. They don't know where what's called DNS records, right? The DNS records, if they could get in and touch their DNS records, which is the phone book of the internet, right? That's where you go to find out where, coloradosupport.com's email is. If you could find that, it was easy to stand up your email somewhere else in less than an hour. So make sure that you have copies of documentation stored in a safe somewhere that is how you log in and get to your email provider, your registrar, your DNS host, your web host, something like Bluehost or something like that. How do you get into those things? In addition to just your IT guy, because if your IT guy was on vacation this week and you didn't have that login information, you were in big trouble.
Well, yeah, and the other tidbit of information I can share with you based on my experience in the web world is, always have a backup administrator. We've seen things with social media accounts that people can't get into social media accounts because the marketing manager that owned the Facebook page is no longer around and can't be reached, and that account is under their name. Always have a backup administrator, or as we call in the IT world, a backdoor way in into all these critical infrastructures, so that if you need to, and kind of add on to what Jeremy was saying too, make sure all your cloud data is backed up, not just your email. Make sure all your cloud data, that Blake mentioned, is if it's going to cause pain in your business if you're without it for 2 or 3 days, make sure that you have a way to get that back just in case, so what hits the ventilation device, right, Blake?
Yeah. Well, and if on things like if it's a hosted platform and you can't figure out how to get a full backup of it, if nothing else, schedule some automatic reports to go to a mailbox, right? So that you have the reports of the critical things, right? Your client list, your accounts receivables, that kind of stuff that automatically goes to a folder or a mailbox somewhere. So.
Yeah, all good points for sure. All right, thanks, gentlemen, for joining us today, and hope everybody gets some good intel on this. You can check out Jeremy at BACS Consulting Group in the Bay Area at bacsit.com.
Correct.
And Blake with Colorado Computer Support at coloradosupport.com. Blake, I'm going to give it to you first for any closing comments, and I'll just give it to Jeremy for any last minute things that we wanted to talk about that we haven't had a chance to bring up yet.
Yeah, it really is. Back up your stuff. And, if you want to learn more, we also have a YouTube channel out there. Search for Colorado Computer Support at YouTube. We have a few hundred videos out there. So if you've already watched all of Netflix and Hulu and are looking for something new, come check us out. And
we'll put a link. We'll put a link below to both of your guys' YouTube channels and stuff. I know Jeremy's got some good content on there as well. Although he's a few videos behind you, Blake, but he's catching up.
Yeah, I need to catch up. I got to get working on that, Blake.
Just get out there and do it.
Jeremy, any other closing comments that you wanted to mention that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
No, as Blake said, back up, and as Blake mentioned a few seconds ago, carefully document everything you have so that when it's not a fire drill, when it's actually a fire, you have everything you need at hand right then and there so you can move forward quickly. Trying to search for credentials and passwords when there's something like this going on and you can't find it is going to bog you down big time. So your IT company should be doing that. If you want to talk to someone that can help you out and you're located in the California area, please reach out to BACS.
And I got one more. So with our larger healthcare clients, I'm thinking hospitals and stuff, they do a tabletop exercise of disaster planning. And so pretty simply, if you walk into your office and the key things, you just say, all right, you have no access to email for the day. How would you operate? And walk yourself through that. What would a disaster in your office look like? Oh, phones are down for an hour. What does that look like? How do we operate? We can't get to our QuickBooks. How do we send out an invoice? And see what the answer is. And then you start to realize what's critical. Disaster
recovery planning is so important to as the people in Florida, both you guys covered in your YouTube channel, which was the disaster prior to this one, right? With the 2 hurricanes that hit Daytona. We were commenting yesterday how we had our meeting. We were all together in Daytona a few weeks ago, sandwiched right between 2 hurricanes. Yeah. Gentlemen, great conversation. Always love to hear your guidance on things. Blake and Jeremy, thanks for tuning in. Make sure all your contact information is below in the comments, and we'll see everybody in the next webinar, whatever that will be.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Great seeing you guys.